The backyard curling from the grill, music drifting in the air. Just a simple weekend BBQ, until Karen called 911, her complaint, a group of terrorists at gathering in my backyard, threatening the HOA, breaking the peace. Plotting chaos. She had no idea who she was really targeting, because this wasn't just a casual gathering of friends. This wasn't just neighbors hanging out. Every single person at that BBQ was an off-duty SWAT team member. And when the cops arrived, the scene turned from a normal complaint into the most expensive mistake the HOA would ever make. Karen's ego had blindsided her. Her threats had awakened something she couldn't control. By the time the dust settled, she would learn one brutal lesson: never underestimate the quiet ones with the badges in their past. The sun was just beginning to dip behind the tree line, casting a warm, golden glow across the backyard. Smoke curled lazily from the grill, carrying the scent of sizzling steaks and burgers. Kids laughed as they ran between the trees, dogs chased each other in circles, and neighbors who weren't part of the HOA watched curiously from a safe distance. It was supposed to be a simple, relaxing evening, a weekend BBQ, nothing more. But Karen, the HOA president, couldn't see it that way. She paced in her pristine cul-de-sac, phone in hand, her face tight with fury. In her mind, this gathering was an invasion, a threat to her carefully curated neighborhood. A casual BBQ became, in her eyes, a conspiracy, a rebellion, a terror plot. She dialed 911, and that was her first mistake. When the call connected, Karen exaggerated every detail, describing shadows behind trees, strange men, with strange equipment, and suspicious activity, that sounded straight out of a spy thriller. Every word dripped with panic, her voice tight and trembling with self-importance. Meanwhile, at the BBQ, laughter continued. People didn't notice the call being made. They didn't know Karen was building her own trap, because she had no idea who she was dealing with. Every adult present had undergone rigorous training, tactical drills, weapons handling, heists, stakes missions that demanded precision, calm under pressure, and split-second decision-making. They were off-duty SWAT team members gathered for a simple weekend together. Ordinary people, hardly. By the time Karen's complaint reached the local precinct, the scene had already shifted in ways she couldn't imagine. Officers prepared for what they thought was a tense standoff, unaware that every single person in that backyard had trained for real-life crises dozens of times over. I could see the tension building as the first police cruiser turned onto the street. Karen's confidence was palpable. She imagined us as scared, intimidated, and ready to disperse at her command. She was wrong. From the corner of my eye, I watched my friends, SWAT veterans, each calm and composed, standing casually near the grill, beers in hand. To the casual observer, we were ordinary men and women enjoying a sunny evening. To Karen and her team, the quiet storm they had just unleashed. The sirens grew louder. The first cop car rolled up, followed by a second, then a third. Karen peeked from behind her curtains, triumphant in her delusion that she had summoned authority to enforce her control. But the backyard remained calm, almost serene, a stark contrast to the tension growing in Karen's mind. Little did she know, every step she had taken to protect her neighborhood was about to backfire spectacularly. By nightfall, the HOA president would learn a hard truth, calling 911 on the wrong people. Untrained professionals with badges and skills could turn her backyard obsession into the most expensive and humiliating mistake of her career. The air was thick with anticipation. The cops were approaching. Karen's ego was ready to explode, and my team, calm, composed, and fully prepared for whatever she had thought she could start. The battle hadn't begun yet, but the stakes had never been higher. By the time the first police cruiser arrived, the backyard looked like an ordinary suburban gathering. Smoke curled from the grill, children played tag, and adults laughed, sipping drinks casually. Yet beneath the laughter, a tension crackled like electricity. Unseen, but palpable, the officers stepped out cautiously, hands hovering near their belts, scanning the crowd. Karen's calls had painted a picture of chaos, danger, even potential violence. In her mind, she had summoned the law to enforce control, to crush the threat in her neighborhood. She had no idea that every adult in that backyard was trained for far worse than her imagination could conjure. I stepped forward casually as the officers approached, a friendly smile masking the anticipation simmering beneath the surface. Around me, my friends mirrored my composure, tactical minds calm under pressure, observing every angle. Every movement, every reaction. The officers called out, "Sir, can you identify yourself?" I nodded, hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. "Marcus Bennett, everything here is under control. No threats, no incidents, just a backyard BBQ." One officer glanced at Karen, who was practically bouncing with eagerness, pointing toward the backyard. "They're SWAT." I added lightly, "All off duty." Karen's mouth dropped open, her face turned pale. She hadn't anticipated this. In her mind, she was a hero protecting the neighborhood. In reality, she was about to become a cautionary tale. I motioned to my friends subtly. One by one, they stood, casual but composed, revealing badges clipped inside jackets, tactical belts tucked neatly under casual clothes. The officers stiffened, realization dawning, these weren't ordinary civilians. Karen's whispered panic escalated into a nervous scream. I called 911. You did. I interrupted calmly, and it's on tape. But everything here is lawful, peaceful, and perfectly safe. The officers exchanged glances, shifting from caution to awe, then quietly returned to their vehicles. Karen, realizing her bluff had been called, began pacing frantically. Her threats, her imagined authority, evaporated in the face of cold, quiet competence. By nightfall, the HOA president's calls had escalated to multiple complaints, emails, and even threats of legal action. Each message only confirmed her error. She had targeted people trained to handle high-stakes situations with precision. Neighbors who had been curious now watched in disbelief. The quiet man and his friends had not only survived her escalation, they had turned the entire scenario into a lesson she would never forget. Around the grill, laughter resumed, casual and triumphant. The kids played, the smoke drifted lazily through the air, and the music continued as if nothing had happened. But behind that calm, a clear message had been sent. Karen's control ended the moment she underestimated us. By the end of this evening, Karen would understand that calling the law on the wrong people, especially trained professionals, was a mistake she would regret for years to come. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing, not with gossip, but with whispers of disbelief. Word had spread that Karen, the HOA president, had called 911 on a backyard BBQ, and the people she targeted weren't just friends, they were off-duty SWAT team members. Karen, pacing in her pristine cul-de-sac, still clutched her phone, eyes wide with panic. She had expected compliance, fear, and perhaps even a quick removal of what she deemed dangerous trespassers. What she got instead was calm, calculated, and unstoppable control. By noon, multiple HOA board members had called, frantically asking for meetings, explanations, and apologies. Emails flew back and forth, each one documenting the HOA overreach, each one a testament to Karen's colossal mistake. Every message she had sent, every exaggerated claim she had made, had been recorded and documented. At the cabin, I convened my team. Casual laughter drifted over the lake, but beneath it, strategy and precision guided our every move. We weren't there to escalate further. We had already won. The HOA had revealed their ignorance, their arrogance, and their total misunderstanding of who they were dealing with. Karen tried one last move. A legal letter arrived, threatening fines and claiming unlawful gathering and endangerment. But the evidence we had gathered, video footage, witness accounts, and verification of off-duty SWAT status made her threats meaningless. The HOA had crossed the line, and the law was now firmly on our side. By sunset, Karen's reputation had crumbled. Board meetings turned into heated debates over how a single backyard gathering had exposed their incompetence. Members whispered nervously about the mistakes made, the calls ignored, and the pride that had cost them everything. The cabin itself became a symbol of victory. The grill was packed up, the smoke rising into the evening sky, and kids ran freely without fear. What had been intended as a simple social gathering had turned into a lesson in humility, power, and respect. Neighbors began to approach cautiously. curious to see the quiet man who had stood up to the HOA and their self-important president. They were met with smiles, casual conversations, and a story that sounded almost too cinematic to be true. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood on the cabin's porch, looking over the lake. The backyard was peaceful again. Laughter filled the air, and the HOA, they had learned a brutal truth. Never underestimate the quiet ones, especially when they've trained for the impossible. The cabin, the BBQ, the backyard, all of it was more than a gathering. It was a testament to skill, patience, and strategy. Karen's calls, her complaints, her threats, all neutralized by preparation, experience, and calm precision. And as the evening settled, one thing was clear. The quiet men and women of the backyard had won. The HOA had lost. By the time the neighborhood slept, the legend was set. Karen's ego would never forget, and the lesson she learned would echo in every HOA meeting to come. The BBQ had been just the beginning. The victory was complete. Like, share, and subscribe for more HOA drama. This video is a dramatized, AI-generated story created for entertainment purposes only. Names, characters, and situations are fictional and do not represent any real individuals or events. This content fully complies with YouTube's community guidelines and policies.